in Carrickfergus and in Glenarm this evening. And we're going to go across the pond this weekend as well, Marty, aren't we?
Oh yes, we're flying away, you may say, this weekend, Justin. We're taken to the air.
Okay, no worries.
All will be revealed.
So what have you been up to this week?
How are we today, Justin? We're doing well.
We're not too bad. What have you been up to this week then?
Not a big lot, to be fair. We have the weather's been a wee iffy. I've been very busy feeding ducks, walking in the forest. Well, there's really a big lot we can't do. We can't go anywhere. I haven't been dining out or going to the pub. I have been using new equipment now, Justin. We have better recording equipment, a new camera, all of that sort of jazz. So we've been playing about with that.
Do we have good internet yet?
My internet's not too bad tonight. I don't know. There's something in the air tonight.
Fingers crossed. So what's first tonight on the news then?
Well, tonight, Justin, on Whisky news. There's a look. Very dignified with glasses on. I don't actually need these, but we'll put them on anyway. Make it look good. First up, Justin, the Irish Whisky Awards, the Irish Whisky Association Awards, I should say, the AWA, were announced. And the chairman, David Stapleton, who's the co-founder or the founder of the Connaught Whisky Company and chairman of the Irish Whisky Association, picked his 6 winners of the awards, which are very prestigious. These are very much sought after. The people who won these were very happy about it, I assure you. So who won? Noel Sweeney, who was formerly of Cooley Distillery, which a lot of people don't know about Cooley because they don't really make their own brands. They make other brands like Tyrconnell and Kilbeggan and this kind of thing. So he was there, but he's now he's a master distiller at Powers Court, just outside Dublin at Distillery. So he won. David Hines, director of the Great Northern Distillery, which is something very similar to Cooley. A lot of people won't know the brand, the actual distillery, but they'll certainly know a lot of the brands that they make because they make them for other people. Helen Mulholland, up in Bushmills, who you and I both had the pleasure of talking to not long ago, about a month ago, maybe. Yeah. Billy Layton, who is the master distiller, the chief distiller down in Middleton for Irish distillers. So Redbreast and Middleton and Jameson and lots of brands that we're very, very familiar with. Now, posthumously, the people won Oliver Hughes down in Dingle, way down in the southwest, and Dr. Pierce Lyons, who was the founder of Alltech and the Pierce Lyons Distillery in Dublin. Now, if you haven't had a chance to get down to Pierce Lyons Distillery, make the effort. It's absolutely stunning. It's inside an old church. The stained glass windows have been replaced, and I've got whiskey scenes and stuff in it. It's just, the way it's been done is fabulous. Beautiful blue glass spire up at the top. It really, really is fabulous. And there's a picture of Billy Layton. He posted on Facebook the other day when he won, and he was extremely happy to have won it. And Billy I've met a good few times, and he's a very, very nice man. Very nice man. So congratulations to all the people that won. Thoroughly deserved.
Do you think we'll ever win it?
I'd like to think so, Justin. Along with an Oscar, an MBE, and possibly a papal knighthood.
Oh, fantastic! So, what's new this week on the awards then?
Right. Second on the news featured this week, a bit of country in the whiskey reviewing world, Justin. Scottish whiskey reviewer who lives in the Isle of Man, Ralphie Mitchell, who has 144,000 subscribers on YouTube. He's been doing this a very long time. Made a YouTube video earlier on in the week in which he brought out a malt alternatives to single malt whiskies that he wanted people to try. And the first off was, and I only have a small bottle of this, Yellow Spot pot still whiskey. Okay? Now, when he brought it out, because he brought it out of a paper bag, like a surprise. And I'll give you a quote of what he said. Now, this is very offensive, Justin, so don't be getting very upset with this.
Oh no, I'm getting ready to write into the BBC.
Oh, well, you can't write into the BBC because it was on YouTube. You have to write into Google because they'll totally ignore you. What he said was, no one seems to have a bad word to say about the Irish these days, now that they've stopped bombing and generally messing people about. now, Ralphie, I've also put you straight. We're not all terrorists, you know. We don't all go around bombing each other. You know, just Ralphie's from Glasgow, so he doesn't go around headbutting everybody every 2 seconds. Now, when it was brought up, people complained, and probably rightly so. It's these days you're not allowed to stereotype people like that, and some people did take quite a lot of offence at it. So Ralphie has taken it down, and he apologised. So he put up another video which has been watched 25,000 times. In the apology, now again, don't be laughing at this now, Justin. In the apology, Ralphie said the reason he came out with it was he was talking to 2 lady diplomats from Ireland who had been discussing how difficult it was to get to move forward and all the problems it was. So he says he's going to re-record the Yellow Spot and do it a bit more tactful. Fair enough, Ralphie. I'll just have a wee Yellow Spot because he liked it. He thought it was very nice. So we'll just have a wee Yellow Spot in his honour. Well done, Ralphie. Everybody was commenting that when they sort of felt out that he looked like a crossroads between a bus conductor and a Trump. It's not a recommendation.
I think it's just a caricature he has of himself, but it's working for him. But listen, anybody could put their foot in it. We could say something about the Chinese next, and we could be number 1 with a bullet.
Or we could be forced to eat a pangolin and chips. Now, this week, Justin, Irish whiskey along with Irish cream achieved PGI status, protected geographical indication, in China. that means you're not allowed to copy it, and you're not allowed to falsely claim that something goes anywhere. Now, I don't cast aspersions on the good people of the People's Republic of China, but they have been known to copy stuff before. So, in the agreement between China and the EU, 100 European and agri-foods will be legally protected in China against imitations and misuse of a product's name. Now, Irish whiskey sales in China continue to grow. From 2015, they sold €39,000 to last year, it was €1,155,000. But surprisingly, Irish cream far outstrips Irish whiskey. Last year, it was 3.2 million. So you're heading towards nearly 3 times as much in terms of sales, revenue. 3 times as much from Irish cream as you get from Irish whiskey. Now, alongside Irish whiskey and Irish cream, other European products are protected, such as cava, champagne, prosecco, port, Polish vodka, etc., etc. And as a reciprocal thing, there's lots of Chinese, 100 Chinese products are protected in the same way. So you can't. It's now illegal in the EU to copy Picsan bean paste, Angie white tea, Pangan rice, and Acu ginger,
and fake baby milk.
There you go, Justin. You're not. Now I know a girl. This is true. She's Chinese, and I was up to the flat that she shared with her boyfriend, and she was wrapping up packets of baby powder to send back to China. And she didn't think there was anything sort of untoward or might be somewhat suspicious of big kilogram bags of white powder going by the Royal Mail. She didn't think that at some point somebody might go, there's some not here. So she was sending that back.
It's pretty normal then.
So what do you think of do you think the Chinese will adhere? Do you think the Chinese will adhere to this, Justin?
Probably not. So what is this Thin Lizzy story about then? I have no idea what Thin Lizzy, because he's long gone.
Yes, great film in it. Now, this week film director Eamon Reynolds told the Express newspaper that Thin Lizzy always hated whiskey in the jar. A new documentary, Phil Lynott, Songs for While I'm Away, claimed that the band's frontman says they only recorded the song almost as a joke. It topped the Irish charts and was number 6 in the UK, and it was one of their biggest hits. The band dropped their song from the live set, but after a recording by the band Metallica, it took on a new lease of life and was brought back again. So it's so one of their biggest hits, and one that's played all over the place. Actually, they thought it was a bit of a joke, and well, I suppose that's the sort of curse of having a successful record. It's like Tom Jones singing "It's Not Unusual." He must sing it. He must have to sing it about 4 times a week, every week.
It could be worse. It could be a Christmas one.
Well, Shane MacGowan must be doing all right out of Fairy Tale in New York. Not sure Noddy Holder, he retired from Slade because he didn't particularly like performing, and Christmas pays him enough money every year that he doesn't have to work. So if you're going to write a song, you're going to have to sing. At least you only have to do that once a year. You're not going to have to sing "Merry Christmas, everyone" in July, you know.
Well, we've one final story before we go on to our first guest of this evening, and our first guest is going to be all about the red hot chili peppers, or our version of them.
After this, we'll move on to another quasi band. You know, we'll plagiarise the name a bit. Now, this is the last story. I found this quite interesting this week because it seems that everybody's jumping on the Irish whiskey juggernaut. And I quite like this. Disaronno, you know, the Italian liqueur, is now releasing a full range of Irish whiskies. So the Busker series will have 4 different types of Irish whiskey: a single malt, a blend, single grain, and the Irish exclusive, the PGI Irish pot still. So Disaronno is actually an American company that owns this, that's doing this. But it's got an Italian parent company, if you like. And the Busker whiskey is distilled at the Royal Oak Distillery down in County Carlow. Now, it's priced at about $30 in the States, which makes it really, really competitive. It's really, really quite cheap. But to me, it shows that when a big company, and Disaronno is a big company, are buying up Irish whiskey stuff to release it themselves, it kind of shows you where the market is, you know, and the confidence that these big multinationals now have in Irish whiskey. So I see it as a fantastic shot in the arm, you know.
Okay, well, yeah, it's good that they're investing in Irish products, and well, there's lots of other people investing in Irish products, least of all Bushmills. Well, last night, Justin, we had something. You got to shake your shaker. You know, it's. I always like doing that. It pleases you greatly. Cocktails. I love cocktails. We're lucky enough to catch up with Paul Moore of RebelChilli, who created this fantastic hot chili sauce for Blackbush Stories Bushmills cocktails. So I got a chance to catch up with him today because he's a very busy man, and stand by for that because we got a very special guest at about 2 or 3 minutes time. Here's what I had to say to Paul Moore from RebelChilli earlier on in the day.
Now on the line, he's a very busy man. It's Paul Moore from RebelChilli Sauce. Paul, how did you get involved with Bushmills?
Bushmills approached me back in February, part of their Black Bush events, and we ended up agreeing to do a series of cocktail masterclasses over Zoom. And I made a special sauce for these events for Bushmills. So we aged hot sauce in one of their Black Bush barrels.
I must admit, Marty and me were lucky enough to be invited along last night. I enjoyed both of them immensely. How did you realise that hot sauce was a suitable pairing for cocktails? Because I know they do put Worcester sauce into cocktails, but your special RebelChilli sauce is something else.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I suppose I had used it. We have our own barrel-aged sauce, which I used before in cocktails, like in margaritas, but I hadn't necessarily incorporated it into whiskey cocktails. So it was kind of a bit of a hit and hope initially, but when we tasted the whiskey, we were onto a winner. Through a lot of experimentation, which was fun as well.
Where do you take it from here? It's only for this special Bushmills tasting sort of thing, the Black Bush Tories. Your RebelChilli hot sauce, is it flying off the shelves for Christmas?
Yeah, it's going well. We're very busy now since September, thankfully, because the summer was a bit quiet, which is normally our busier time. But I think because the year has been such a mess, things have been a bit all over the place. But we've been very busy now since September, and especially October and November have been great. So December is normally our busiest month of the year as well. So yeah, we're going well. The rest of our products are on sale in Aldi, Duns and Super Value and online from rebelchilli.com. So they're flying out, especially the online stuff actually, Justin. So it's great.
Excellent stuff. Paul Moore from RebelChilli Hot Sauce. You can see the recipes for his fantastic cocktails on screen now. Thank you. Now, what did you think of that, Marty? I managed to catch up with him. You've been trying to get him, but he's a very busy man. Very, very, very popular hot sauce brand.
Yeah, it was. The cocktails are very enjoyable. Now, to be fair, cocktails are more your kind of thing than they are mine. We've discussed this many, many times, but getting a wee shaker. But they were both really nice, and the sauce is superb. It's really, really good. I was going to buy chicken today, but then I realised I had stuff in the fridge, so I'm going to buy hot wings and do a wee marinade with them later on in the week. And that and a wee squeeze of lemon, I think, would be very nice, Justin.
Now, it's almost time to go to the far side of the pond, to Tobacco Barn Distillery. Standing by for us there is an Admiral, a full Admiral, or are you full Admiral or a rear Admiral?
I'm a rear Admiral, but I'm retired, so my wife calls me, "Hey, you, come over here." And that's my partner, Sean, behind me.
Right, and
hey, hello, Sean.
Good evening.
Now, I'll just come in with why we've got. We're extremely fortunate to have Rear Admiral Scott Sanders on here. I'll give a little bio of your former career, and then we'll get to what you're doing now, because this is impressive. This is impressive. I've been boasting about this for a wee while now.
Oh, you've been scouring the internet.
Sanders is a pilot with over 5,000. Yes, I've done Wikipedia. No, I've done a wee bit more than Wikipedia. So, his 5,000 hours flight time. He was a former deputy commander of the US 2nd Fleet, which was the largest fleet in the Navy, in the US Navy. 126 ships, 90,000 sailors, and 1,500 aircraft. He was a sea commander of the Combined Task Force 151, which had the command of 4,400 sailors, 19 ships from 7 nations to counter piracy of Somalia. And there's various other lists of achievements, but I thought that we'll just leave it at that. Don't want to embarrass how little I've actually done. I considered it an achievement to walk around the forest today. But now he is retired, and he's decided to get into the whiskey business, and he has done so in Maryland and has opened the Tobacco Barn Distillery. So, welcome to the show, Admiral.
Well, it's good to be here. Thank you very much for linking us up. And actually, here it's 5:20 or so here in the afternoon. So easy enough. We just finished a tour here at the distillery, and a little bourbon here.
We do that every
I
week.
have a little pot still left. Mate. I have a wee pot still. Now, tell me about Tobacco Barn. What made you decide to go from a naval career, where I'm sure once you retired you could have done military consultancy or all those kind of jobs that most retired service personnel do? Why did you decide to get into whiskey?
Well, as you can see from the things we do, it's not normal. We have fun. This is a business, but we're also making bourbon. So why not have fun while you're doing it? So you showed some rum that we age on the all-sail warship in the United States Navy, the USS Constellation. We did that. We started that about 5 years ago. And then through just some wacky coincidence, I happen to know a guy who owns the second Sea Harrier ever built for the Royal Navy. And so we got together and we said, hey, let's put some on a Harrier and fly it. So it's I don't know what it's gonna push that bourbon way into the staves, and it ought to give it a very special taste.
Now, I'll just fill in a little bit more about the story, because the people watching this probably don't know just exactly what you're talking about. What the Admiral's going to do is basically mount 2 casks of whiskey on the undercarriage of a Sea Harrier and fly them at 700 miles an hour. Now, there are lots of things that have been done with whiskey as an experiment. Aging it in very different casks, and putting it in very cold environments, very humid environments. I don't think anybody's ever taken it up and done broke the sound barrier with the casks of whiskey. So this is a new one.
Yeah, nobody's ever done it, and so I've had people come to me and say, "Oh, we put barrels here." I said, "Okay, that's some incidental story from World War II or something, and nobody did it this way." And so this ought to be a very special flight of bourbon, and it's for a charity. So we're only going to get maybe 600 bottles. That's if they don't leak. So Sean, he asked me. He said, "You think the barrels will leak?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, they're going to leak." That bourbon's going to push all the way through the wood. We're going to lose, I don't know, something like 7 psi, going up to altitude. We're going up to 15,000 feet, so we're going to lose some psi up there. I tell people it's like nobody goes up in an airplane now because of COVID, but when you did, if you got one of those bag of potato chips or whatever, the bag expands. That's what's going to happen, because we're not pressurizing the tanks that the bourbon's going.
Yeah. It is. See, for us, when someone turns around and says, "I know a guy who's got a Sea Harrier," over here, we're not. The fact that the guy who owns the Ecklandville Distillery, Shane, he collects old vintage military like APCs and tanks and stuff, and we think that's weird and wonderful. But the fact that someone who actually owns a Sea Harrier come up with the idea. I mean, how did you connect the two? I'm very interested in how you connected that with that.
Well, it's a lot of good things come about when you're drinking a little bit of this. You get some very creative ideas when you're drinking some good bourbon. Or Irish whiskey, whatever you have. So I tell you a little sea story, since I'm an admiral. I'll tell you a sea story. Let me grab a. So, Irish whiskey is barley, which it's good, nothing wrong with that. And but we grow the corn about 100 feet from here. So we're all, what I might do is just adjust this just a hair. We're all single farm bourbon. And I know that's starting to gain provenance and lie in a lot of people, but we've been single farm since day one. So we grow the corn, 100 feet from where I'm standing right now. And so, bourbon, just like Scotch, it's, it has to be, everybody has their protocol, just like Irish whiskey is a different thing. So bourbon has to be 51% corn and all cereal grains. And we just wanted to do something special. And it's in a charity because it goes to wounded service members and their families. And so that's what this is for. And it's just kind of a cool idea. We're going to get it up in the air and do it. My C story is that back when I was running the counter-piracy task force off Somalia, and I was there I tell people it was the best and the absolute worst job I've ever had. I was there for 6 months. And I met with the Chinese, the Russians, all the European nations, Korea, Singapore, Pakistan, India, everybody. And what I would do after the first visit, all I had was some cheesy ball cap or a belt buckle or something to give them. And they were presenting me, something from the Ming Dynasty or something. It was a very nice gift. And I felt so cheap. So the next time I pulled into port, I bought 3 cases of American bourbon. And then I got a little Sharpie thing. Next visit, I put, thank you very much for your help fighting piracy. Love and kisses, Admiral Sanders. And from that point forward, I was the most popular date in the Gulf of Aden because I was the only one who had American bourbon. Hey, I met with the Chinese, and I can guarantee you the Chinese didn't meet to meet with me 3 times, but they wanted another. They wanted another bottle of bourbon.
I can't imagine. It's amazing. It's amazing how much diplomacy and stuff is done for a bottle of something. It's a fabulous way of doing things. But so tell us a bit more about Tobacco Barn, because Maryland has a bit of a, shall we say, almost a secret whiskey tradition. Now, me and Justin both live up in Northern Ireland, up in the northeast corner of Ireland, which is where the Scots-Irish, as they're known, come from. And they went over, and the first place they actually landed was in Maryland. And they were the ones that actually took whiskey to the US. And it was them then who went on to Kentucky. But the first place they landed was in Maryland.
Yeah. So you're Northern Ireland, so you're British citizens. So 250 years ago, we were British citizens here. And I'll say we invented the first Brexit. We don't get credit for that, but we invented the first Brexit. So what had happened is after the first Brexit, we annoyed the king, and he said, well, we're not allowing imports of molasses and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so we just had to make do with what we had. And we had corn. And we had other things. And so it's because King George got mad at us, we had to go rogue and start making our own. So that's what we started doing over here.
So the actual, obviously the name Tobacco Barn, I assume, comes from you grew tobacco originally, and then then moved on to corn, or is that?
Yeah, so the farm we're on is it's been in tillage for a couple hundred years, and Maryland made money by growing tobacco. So if you go back to the Virginia colony and Lord Baltimore's colony here, it was all about tobacco because the king got a penny per pound, and so that's what put this on. So if you had cleared land, you were growing tobacco because that made you money. Corn kind of fed the cattle. It kind of fed your family, but tobacco is what made you money. And then if you had any excess grains, just like if you were in Ireland or Scotland or any place, you only distilled in the winter. Nobody distilled in the summer. It's too darn hard because everybody was a farm distiller. So distilling on the small scale, the independent people, you did it in the winter. And so, you harvested your crops in the fall, And if you had any excess, because the animals were going to get it or the insects, so you distilled it into whiskey. You know, it was the precursors to bourbon, because bourbon has to be 51% corn. We use a high rye content because we have a heavy influence from the English here, English, Scotch, and Irish. They came here and they had the distilling technology, and so we didn't really grow wheat and barley until the 1800s. So in the 1700s, it was more corn and rye, and that's what they made, and that's how we make our bourbon today.
Yeah. Now, I read on the website that the distillery, you're trying to keep it as environmentally friendly as possible.
Yeah, I tell people it's not part of the business plan. It's just the way you are with a farmer, because where we are, farmers are the original environmentalists, because we're taking care of our land. We don't waste anything. And we're kind of Scottish. We're pretty cheapskate. And so we've got solar panels. We have geothermal fields. We recycle 100% of our cooling water. So nothing right here, if we dumped our water, and it'd be thousands of gallons of water a year, it goes into a tributary that goes into a creek that goes into the St. Mary's River, which goes into the Potomac, which goes into the Chesapeake Bay. And we're all about preserving our heritage and the environmental cleanliness of the Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah, I think I reiterate this all the time, that when people talk about environment things, really it has to be business does that. It has to be business, because there's no one else capable of doing it. The governments can do programs, but ultimately it's businesses, because that's who use it, that's who manufacture stuff. And all these small changes for business really do make a huge difference, you know, and it's always to be congratulated, you know.
Yeah, it's we do. I mean, the government helps. We work actually in collaboration between the government and a lot of the educational institutions here too. So we do a lot of archaeology, because bourbon. Kentucky put bourbon on the map, and they have done awesome stuff with bourbon. Bourbon would not be today without Kentucky. And as I tell people, I do a lot of industry survey on Kentucky bourbon. Don't tell my wife, because she calls it drinking. But the Kentucky, with them, the world started in 1792, and it didn't. Because before there was a state of Kentucky, it was part of Virginia. And we had settlers after the first Brexit. We got ravaged. I mean, the British Army said they were very kind and polite while they were over here, but they really weren't. That's a good PR campaign they put out. And so this area was devastated. And so people went west into the far reaches of Virginia, which is present day Kentucky. And so that's where a lot of the bourbon names from today, Basil Hayden, Willett, Wathen, they call it, and they took with them their whiskey. They took with them tobacco culture and how to grow tobacco. They took with them all the family names, and they a lot of the family recipes. So there are recipes today that only exist in this part of Maryland and in Nelson County, Kentucky. That's not by coincidence.
No. I was doing a little bit of research. I have this book. It's the Scotch Irish. It's very, because this is where hang on, Justin's moving me about here. This tells the story of the They were the ones who took whiskey across to the States. The and then the Maryland, and then went on down
there.
But Maryland and Pennsylvania before going down to Kentucky and Tennessee, etc., etc. So I mean that's all the way through where me and Justin live. I see Justin has put up there. He likes to remind people that where he lives in Carrickfergus.
Yeah, I don't know if you're over in England, and I don't know if you've heard of Cotswolds.
Nice to remind people that John Paul Jones attacked Carrickfergus Castle, which is beside where he lives. So he must hold that against us.
I think the internet's playing trouble with us tonight. It's been very jittery there. Apologies, Admiral, but there's not a lot we can do about that. But Marty was saying there about
English Whisky Society on a few weeks ago.
We have heard of Cotswolds Distillery. What were you going to say about Cotswolds Distillery, Admiral?
Justin?
What I was going to say, Daniel Soar, he's what a great guy. I went and visited him about 3 years ago because he's bringing whiskey distilling back to England, where it's been gone for a long time, and that's kind of what we're doing. We're bringing bourbon distilling back to Maryland. It started. It's like, who invented the cart? A lot of people did. Well, they were making whiskey bourbon here in the 1700s, and we're just bringing it back here because it left for a long time, and we're just celebrating the local terroir, our single farm bourbon and those type of things, because it's a different flavor, a different taste than you get elsewhere. And there's a lot of good ones out there, and we're one of them. We just as people like trying different whiskeys from all over the place, this is just a good one to try too.
Now, American whiskey is booming. I mean, we talk about an Irish boom in Irish distilleries, but in America now, you're talking 1,500, 1,600 whiskey producing distilleries across the whole of the States. And I mean, it's just exploded over there too. So how do you see the market going, or how do you see it all developing?
Well, there's a boom in I'll say the small independent distillers like us, and I think it's close to 2,000 now. I think there's close to 2,000 small independent, but when you get down to it, I don't know if it's 95, 96% of all American whiskey, which includes bourbon, is pretty much made basically at 16 distilleries owned by 9 international corporations. It means all the large corporate guys, they have hundreds of brands because it's about shelf space. And they see what's going on in the small independent world, because the way we distill more like Scotch. Irish whiskey is triple distilled. We double distill, and we take cuts. So we take a Hertz cut. So what we put in the barrel is pretty damn good from it doesn't take as long to mature it. And it's now you still need to mature it. I'm not saying that, but it's a high quality distillate that goes in the barrel to begin with.
Yeah, it's a
hey, are you familiar?
Story.
Now, it's not Northern Ireland, but are you familiar with the? Oops, sorry about that. Are you familiar with the Irish Whiskey War after the Civil War over here in America in about the 1870s?
Oh yes, I'm very familiar with it. The Whiskey Rebellion. It was lots of Scots-Irish who decided that when George Washington wanted to pay for his war, that he would tax the people. He would tax the people who basically had won him the war. And lots of those guys, the likes of the Battle of Kings Mountain that happened before, had been these Scots-Irish. So they didn't particularly want to pay tax,
Yeah. Well, that was you're right. It was Alexander Hamilton who convinced George Washington to tax. And that was actually the first kind of thing between the large corporate guys and the independents. So, because what they do is they would tax the small guys in Western Pennsylvania at the same rate, because they do it on a 12-year basis or 12-month basis. So if you had a still in Western Pennsylvania, you got taxed as much as a large corporate guy in New York. Well, they only distilled in the winter. And so, but you got taxed less for it. So that was part of the problem. The bigger problem was you had to pay in cash. You had to pay your tax. And nobody in the Western United States had any cash in 1790. Everything was barter. So it was very abusive. But the Irish whiskey war I'm talking about it was after our Civil War. So about 1870 up in Brooklyn. And so what happened is, again, the government needed to pay for a war, and the easiest thing to tax is alcohol. And so up near what is today the Brooklyn Navy Yard, in the 1870s, it lasted about 5 or 6 years. They had U.S. troops up there going into people's houses because everybody had a small still someplace, trying to put it down.
Now, I must ask your business partner.
The history of whiskey absolutely fascinating.
I must ask your business partner a question.
Sorry.
What's it like working with an admiral? Does he still bark orders like he's on the bridge of a ship? And do you have to jump to it?
Oh, dear God. Be careful how I answer that, because I still got to work with the admiral. So in all honesty, I'm a Marine. I'm an E5. I'm a sergeant. And this is such a wonderful partnership that we have here. It's fantastic. And I met Scotty 20 years ago, and right away, if you haven't already picked up on it, he's got an infectious personality. And it's just somebody you want to hang around to see what's going to happen next. And there's been plenty of times where I just shake my head and go, what is he going to do next? And so far, it's this 700-mile-an-hour bourbon that is, I got to admit, it's a little more out there than I'm comfortable with, but we're going to do it anyway. But the best thing about this is why we started this distillery. And you know, Marty, you sent us a note a week or two ago, and it's about a common love that people have, not necessarily just for alcohol. But I'm looking at the comments that you have over here on the side of the screen and everything. And it's about the sharing of an experience that alcohol used in moderation and all that good sort of stuff can help foster. And that's why we started this distillery, is because we have that common love of all the good things it can bring. And I tell you what, it's been 7 years, 6 years, 7 years we've been doing this now. And I'm amazed every day. It just like our bourbon, it just keeps getting better every day.
Do you get to travel much to other distilleries in North America, or are you still in the stage of lockdown at the minute?
I know I have. My wife, God bless her, is a professional drinker, and we spend a lot of time going to different wineries, distilleries, and breweries, and there is and giving the props to the mega distilleries. There are some that do a wonderful job of connecting what the experience can be with the products that they deliver. And then there are some that are just so cold. You walk in, you take a ticket, you're one of 200 people that are going to go through that day, and you just left wanting. But even some of the bigger folks, get it right. And it's about connecting people and stories together. And that's, it's not hard to do, but it takes a little bit of effort, and not everybody's willing to do that effort.
Hey, Justin, I saw a comment. I wanted to know what we bottle at. We're at 45%, so it's 90 proof. That's in the range for a good bourbon. We we will have a bottled and bond expression coming out. So it's kind of an archaic term here in the United States. It's one of the first, I'll call it food purity laws in the United States. It dates back to the 1890s. Because in America, hey, the food could be a little wishy-washy, but we get pissed off about our whiskey. And so we, what they did was they said to make sure it wasn't adulterated, because people were putting a lot of nasty stuff in there in the 1800s. So it had to be bottled at a single distillery in a single distilling season, and it had to be bottled at 100 proof and aged 4 years. So we're going to we do that all right now, but we bottle it at 90 proof. But because, just because we can make some bottled and bond, we're going to probably be doing that here in the near future.
You also make a cinnamon whiskey, the Mull Dyer. Could you tell me about that?
Yeah, we had this local witch down here in the late 1600s. And so before there was Australia, Maryland got more convict labor from Britain than any place else. So what would happen if you were a poor person in London, wherever, and you got caught pinching a silver spoon from whoever you're working for, you had to go be an indentured servant down in, in the Caribbean someplace for 5 or 7 years. And then after indenture, you could not go back to England. So they took you up to the port of Baltimore and just dumped you out there. So our poor Mull Dyer, here's a single woman. She'd been to the Caribbean. She was a healer. So she knew some of the natural healing methods. By that time, there was, Mull was Catholic. By that time, there was, I'll call it an impolite ceremony that moved the capital of Maryland from St. Mary City, Catholic, to Annapolis, Protestant. So you all know how that goes over there. So the Mull Dyer left Baltimore to come down to we are where the Catholics were. And then, so here's a single woman, 1694, whatever it was. Cold winter, crops failed. Damn it, she's a witch. And so they no kidding murdered her. So they burned her house down, and she froze in the middle of the night. And this is the story. It's a great story. It probably never happened, but it's a great story. She pointed and she said, "I curse you and your descendants in perpetuity." So Mull was not a witch. We're just trying to rehabilitate her reputation after 300 years. So what we do is we take our bourbon mash, we put it in a used barrel. So at that point, it's whiskey. And then we put in 2 varietals of cinnamon bark, not chemicals, not flavorings. It's cassia and Sri Lankan cinnamon. And we age it about 10 or 12 months. And it's a really nice all-natural cinnamon whiskey.
Excellent.
Fantastic stuff. Marty, do you have any more questions for the Admiral and the team at the Tobacco Barn Distillery there?
I don't. I think what you're doing is fantastic. When I read about the 700 miles an hour whiskey, I couldn't not send a message. When can we expect to watch this? When are we going to get it live streamed? When's the paperwork? Because I'm sure there's lots and lots of paperwork to this. When are we going to get to see it?
So right now, we're planning on April of 2021. As I tell people, I'm not in charge of COVID. So if April 2021 looks like the flight date, and if you would like to, we would love to live stream it to you. So we'll figure out, we'll get offline and we'll figure out, I think it would be awesome to live stream a Sea Harrier back there, and it'd just be cool. This is the 2nd Sea Harrier ever built. So it'll be an awesome event.
Ever built.
You maybe know this, Admiral, because I know you were an aviator. but the actual groundwork for a lot of the Sea Harrier stuff was done on a thing called the Flying Bedstead at Shorts, which is about 10 miles away from my house, and we used to be able to hear the Tucano sort of trainer planes engines being revved up and tested in test beds and all that sort of thing. And lots of people around here still work in Shorts. I have a mate, he's the stress manager in Shorts. But we were always pleased that the Harrier's still in use with the American fleet. We've done away with it here with the new sort of semi-vertical takeoff and landing jet. But did you fly the Harrier yourself? Did you?
No. It was a Marine Corps. I was in the Navy. I flew. It was called the E-2C Hawkeye. So it's kind of like an AWACS. It's got a big dome. It lands on a carrier.
Yeah, know that one.
Fast, nothing sexy, but everybody wanted, because I told everybody where that tanker was. They were that was in a communications node. I will tell you, we know how loud the Harrier is because our farm is about 4 miles away from where Art Nall's Harrier is. And that a-hole comes flying over our farm all the time. I know how loud that is. Oh, my God.
All right. Well, listen, it's been lovely talking to you, Admiral. Scott Sanders there, retired, and the team at the Tobacco Barn Distillery. We're going to leave it there tonight. Catch you again in April when you fly this thing. I've just put up on the screen, it's not an April Fool. Julie Masons has just said, excellent, would love to see that. She'd love to see that. We will live stream it at the time or put a link up afterwards if we can't do that.
Absolutely.
Trevor Watson wants to see it as well. And a lot of really positive comments coming in there, even from north of the border, from the Patriots. Are they the Patriots? The Canadians north of the border, Jody Burks in Prince Edward Island. He said, great to hear the US side of things. There you go. But listen, thank you very much, and talk to you again soon. Good evening.
You guys are great. Thank you very much for having us.
All right. Cheers.
Hey, but real quick,
guys,
how do you say?
It's been a pleasure. Stay safe. Take care.
How do you say cheers in Irish? Sláinte. Is that what you want? Yep. Good night to you.
Good night. Take care.
Now, Marty, your internet is clockwork tonight. Mine is crystal clear. Look at I'm in 60 hertz and can move my hands and you can see my fingers. But you've gone a bit clockworky on us. I don't know what.
All right.
I don't know what it is. We're three ways there. It started off all right. A wee bit of a delay there, so apologise to the Admiral. So I suppose he was used to it because it's a bit like in Star Trek where it comes through and spits and spurts, you know. So there you go. Jody Burke, like mentioned there, awesome. He's from Canada there, and Trevor Watson said, "What a great guest! Yes, one of our best guests so far. I can certainly."
When I heard about the story, I thought I have to speak to this man because it's just such a cool story. It's just fantastic.
Yes, it was very good. What did you make of the cocktails last night when you tried them too? I actually was very, very impressed with them actually.
Well, I remember you saying that you would quite happily pay, was it £20 for one of them in Bert's Jazz Bar in Belfast?
Yeah, I would certainly pay 25 quid for them. They were very, very good. Michael Matthews is saying, interesting guest. We'll look forward to following up and seeing the flight. Yes, that will be a sight to behold. I mean,
absolutely.
You know, he's going to lose stuff. He's doing it for charity. But do you reckon that would alter the whiskey itself, the heating it at temperature?
Well, the thing is, Justin, once it gets up there, it's going to expand. It's going, as the Admiral says, it's going to expand into the wood. Will it be up there long enough to make any difference? Will it expand enough to actually burst the cask? It might not have both casks. You never know. But I mean, it's the whenever you say stuff that's totally outlandish. Whenever you're talking about something that's totally outlandish, and people will turn around and say, nah, that's not true. You quantify it by saying it's in America. The fact that he thought to himself, I own a distillery, or I run a distillery, my friends get a Sea Harrier. How's it about we get whiskey going supersonic? Actually has the means to do it, the idea to do it. I love the story. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, it is. Some of these guys that are keeping the whiskey dream alive, they're very deep pockets, don't they?
Well, let's be honest, that to do any sort of flight's not going to be cheap, but you'd imagine if it was for charity and stuff, there's obviously going to be.
I know, but he's certainly putting a lot of money into it. I mean, last week the guy Matt Darcy was putting millions into it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, everything about whiskey costs money. It's an expensive thing, but it's also fun. That's the point. That the story behind everything. He's bringing a distillery back to Maryland, which probably the first place that whiskey was ever distilled in the US. He's doing it in an exciting and fun and comic way. It's all of that. It's not dissimilar to Michael last week, who turned around and said, "This is the history in Newry, and I'm bringing that history back and rediscovering stuff, and I want people to know about that and to experience that." And he's willing to put all his time and money and effort, and that's the difference between whiskey and vodka, or even gin. To be fair, gin doesn't have that cachet. It just doesn't have it. There's no other drink, with possibly the exception of rum, that has that story. That no one would take vodka up and fly it about. It's just not going to happen. But people do it with whiskey because it's got a different cachet, and that's the difference in what whiskey is.
So that's about it for this week. The old price is saying evening. Remember, if you've only just joined the show, you can watch it on repeat. The best place is youtube.com/Irish Whiskey Review. Marty.
We have one little thing before we go. We were getting winners sent out, miniatures of River Rock. Our friends, we had Michael on a few weeks ago from River Rock Single Malt in Scotland, the ones with the new bottle, the environmentally friendly guys. They were sending out miniatures to people who won the competition. There was a hiccup in the postage. I know there's lots of people who have stories about the post at the minute. It seems to be all over the place, including the US.
Some people have already got them. They're River Rock, haven't they?
Some people have already got them. Apparently, most of them are in transit. There was a bit of a problem with sending a couple of them down to the Republic, whatever. So hopefully, and we cross fingers, Justin, we cross fingers, it'll be there for next Saturday, and we'll do a tasting next Saturday.
Okay, there you go. There's Frank Hearn saying, got a wee delivery from River Rock today. Thanks, guys. These shows are just getting better. Well, I don't know how we're going to top that. We need to get Elon Musk, and I need to take this Blackbush miniature into the International Space Station in the seat of that SpaceX. That's what we need to do. If we all club together, can we get me 15 million quid for the trip?
I would think, put it like this, I would say if we tell people that we're going to blast you off to the moon, I would say we'll get it no problem, because there are lots of people that want to go that way.
All right, Marty. Talk to you soon. There's Nick Soar saying, haha. Yeah. Here, Nick Soar, is your real name Soaring? Soaring into the sky? That's like the guy that used to give the grant out from the education board, was Miss A. Grant. There you go. A keg of dingle in a DeLorean. That's what I need. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Listen, everybody, good night. Thanks for watching. That's the hour up. Jordy Burke saying, wish you could ship to Canada. Yeah, I'll take the bottle to Canada. I'll go up the airport, put my face mask on, sit in the plane for 12 hours to Prince Edward Island and give you that miniature. No problem, Jordy. You just pay me the $500. There you go. Good night, Marty. Good night.